I'm Dutch, and let's react to the Americans. Hello, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Johan, and I'm a typical Dutchman. And I often wonder, why is there such a misunderstanding between the US and Europe or the Netherlands, and what is this misunderstanding causing? And to do so, I watch at videos from the US comparing it to Europe and try to find out and educate myself and maybe you too to find out the reasons why these differences are. And by learning from each other, we can make hopefully this gap a bit smaller, and we can create a better understanding for each other. That's the general idea of the channel. And to do so, I'm going to take a look at Thomas DeLauer, who tells the real reason America is obese, 9 studies comparing Europeans to Americans. I'm curious because obese is something that we know in Europe as well as that we know them in America. So don't think that we Europeans are all small and thin. No, we also have the same disease like obese. Sometimes you can't help it. But there are studies comparing Europeans to Americans, so I want to know what these conclusions of those studies were, and let's take a look what he has to say about that. And I'm gonna comment on him.
If you were to take someone from Europe that has never seen an American before and you drop them off in America, unfortunately
it looks like a Dutch girl.
one of the first things they'd probably notice is that people are a lot bigger. There's a much higher prevalency of obesity. But we cannot just take a word for it. We need to look at the data. This video is going to be a comprehensive look at if Europeans are truly healthier than Americans. And either way, what are the environmental factors and the food factors, even advertising factors and food availability factors that influence this, that we might be able to get a grasp of. Now, we're going to look at a data side, so we look at all the data, and then we're going to look at a more sort of environmental side. But in short, is Europe healthier than the United States?
Yeah, that's the question. And I also want to know because the healthcare costs is high, so you would think that people would be more careful what they eat and don't eat, because if they get ill or something, that they have to pay a much more higher price for it, for a heart attack or something like that we have in Europe. So I'm curious if this is really true, that Americans are more obese than the Europeans.
In short, yes, it is, but we need to unpack this a little bit more because there's a lot of nuance.
Wait. I missed the question.
But in short, is Europe healthier than the United States? In short, yes, it is, but we need to unpack this a little bit more because there's a lot of nuance. Like, for example, the GDP, the gross domestic product for America per capita, is about $70,000, whereas there's some countries in Europe that are down below $25,000 per capita, right? So huge socioeconomic differences that we have to account for. So for the sake of this video, we're going to get rid of the outliers of Europe, and we're going to look at mainly Western Europe. Okay, so it's
Western Europe. Austria, Vienna, the capital of Vienna. Okay, Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, Liechtenstein. They take Liechtenstein with it? It says a small, look at it. Square miles, Liechtenstein, 62 square miles. Yeah, it's a small country. I cycled through it in an hour. From Austria to Switzerland. I went through Liechtenstein. I didn't even know. Luxembourg, Monaco, also a small country. Netherlands and Switzerland. Monaco, I don't see. Yeah, okay. They don't take France. They take France. They don't take Italy, Spain, and the lower section. So he's this focused on the upper section, the northern European countries, from Switzerland up to Belgium, up to Netherlands, but I don't see the upper countries like Sweden, Denmark, Norway. So it's okay.
More similar socioeconomic status and similar GDP. So to open this off, let's look at a study that was published in Social Science and Medicine. And there's a chart that has popped up on the screen right now. And it's a pretty easy to read chart. The black bar is the United States, and the other bar is Europe.
Share Europe, SHARE. Those acronym means something. Okay, obese. And did you ever smoked? Yes, in America. Current smoker, no, in America, but higher in Europe. And then heart disease, higher. Diabetes, higher. A stroke, higher. Lung disease, higher. And then cancer, higher. Hypertension, higher. And a disability, at least one ADL, also higher. Wow.
Now you can see the instance of disease and the instance of like risk factors is significantly higher in pretty much every single category, metabolic health category that is there. The only one that Europe is worse in is the number of smokers as a risk factor. And even that could be different because this data could be a little bit older and people are smoking less and less. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at this chart and say, wow, America is in bad shape compared to Europe. But we do need to unpack it a little bit more. We need to understand life expectancy as well. Because back in 1975, if you looked at America versus Europe, an average 50-year-old person in 1975 was expected to live another 27.3 years. Whereas in 1975, a European that was 50 years old was expected to live a little over 26 more years. So in essence, back in 1975, things were great in America. People were healthy and they enjoyed their freedom and they were eating good food that was probably more wholesome, right? Less processed stuff.
We enjoyed our freedom too.
But then flash forward to 2005 and the tables turn. In 2005, an average 50-year-old American was expected to live 31 more years, and an average 50-year-old European was expected to live 32 more years. So it flip-flopped. Europeans started living longer, having better life expectancy. However, a thoughtful acknowledgement to the fact that even in the US, the life expectancy is increasing. But life expectancy might continue to increase. We might even have better life expectancy now, but that does not mean that the quality of life is good. That comes with like the advent of medical care and all these other things and the pioneering that's happening there too.
Yeah, but the life expectancy is less in America, as I understand it. Maybe he comes to it that because there's a lot of work, a lot of stress. You have to work to pay your bills. The bills are high. You got high living costs. That means that a lot of people have a lot of stress, need to do work to live, and that stress eats up inside if you don't get enough rest or holidays, and that's why that brings the life expectancy down.
So now we need to unpack the obesity side of the equation though. See, back in 1975, about 15% of Americans were obese. In 1975, about 10% of Europeans were obese. Then in 2005, that bumped up to about 30% of Americans being obese. It doubled. And in Europe, it went from 10% to 12%. It went up 2% versus doubling in America. Okay, but now the most recent data we have is around 2020, and Americans are at about 41% obesity.
What? 41% obesity?
And Europe is at about 17% obesity. So although Europe is gaining a little bit of momentum there, not nearly anything like the US,
He looks very healthy. I'm not that healthy.
right? 41%
I cycle a lot, but
obesity compared to 17. But now is where things get super interesting. I hope that you're still on this video because now is where we can unpack a lot of other stuff. I have a chart that's on the screen right now, and I want to explain this chart to you. An ideal situation for this chart would be on the left side of the chart,
whoa.
as high up as possible.
On the left side of the chart, and then as high as possible. That would be ideal. Yeah. I see Mexico, I see Hungary, Poland, Chile, Greece. Is this Israel? Italy, I don't know what this is. Japan. But according to this, we got Israel, Greece, and Chile as the highest with 80 years. Some are 81, and this is 82. Okay.
So that is the goal. Because what this chart demonstrates is the life expectancy of a country over how much money they spend on healthcare. Now look at the United States.
The life expectancy versus how much money they spend on healthcare. Yes, okay.
The United States has one of the lower life expectancies with a ridiculous amount of money spent on healthcare.
The bigger the dot, the more money is spent on healthcare. So if I'm looking at this one, then you would see that Israel has a very small dot, and the life expectancy is a bit, let's say 82. Okay.
That shows, based on this data, how inefficient that is and how much it's not working. Where you have some countries that have relatively low life expectancy, but they're not spending ridiculous amounts on healthcare. They're spending very little. And just to give an extreme example, look at Mexico in the bottom left. Mexico not spending much money on healthcare at all and poor life expectancy. But of course, a lot of things factor in, right? You've got crime, you've got drinking water, you've got all kinds of things. When you look at the big picture and the collective data, we have a poor life expectancy
Enjoy your meal.
in the United States, and we spend a lot of money. And then you look at something like Japan, for instance. So this is very important to take note of. But now we need to move into the other category. Why is this happening? What is the big deal here? Why?
Yeah, well, why? But there are 9 studies. This is 9. Yeah, okay. Maybe compact them all in one video as being one study and then comparing the charts.
The first thing we need to address is ultra-processed foods. Okay, we're going to talk about which countries have the highest intake of ultra-processed foods and the lowest. We're going to talk about that in a second. But let's get something out in the open. The ultra-processed foods, as much as people will come to their defense, when you consider how much Americans eat of these ultra-processed foods, there's no getting around the fact that it's a problem. When you have hyper-palatable foods that light up your brain like the 4th of July, or let's just say Christmas trees, because we're talking about Europe too. What's going to happen? It's going to make you want to eat more. Now, a lot of the evidence is now suggesting that as this is becoming an ongoing problem over multiple generations, genetics are playing a role too. Obesity genes are something that clearly geneticists and scientists are trying to figure out, okay? But the ultra-processed foods might have been where this all started. Now, I know it would be impossible to just say, hey, I'm never going to touch an ultra-processed food again. It's just
Yeah, ultra-processed meaning completely fixed, ready, nothing else. You can eat it right away. Yeah, my opinion, and this is, again, compared with work and your work-life balance, eating less, having more exercise, having time to do exercise is also a good factor. And yeah, if you don't have the time and you go to the gym late at night and you go 1 hour to the gym and then you have to, I will shower and then I need to go to work because I've got my second job and
Just part of our life.
And then in between, oh yeah, I need to eat something too. What do I grab? Yeah.
But we need to understand the advertising structure. We need to understand what is pushed and what is really driven home as what we should be spending our money on. I remind you that no matter what, you vote with your dollars, okay? So in the US, it is capitalism. Love it, leave it, like it, hate it, doesn't matter. Bottom line is that in a capitalistic society, we are going to vote with our dollars. And if we have more advertising budget for processed foods and hyper-palatable garbage, that's going to hit more people, and more people are going to see that, more people are going to buy that, and whether they've been tricked into buying it or not, they're buying it.
Yeah. It's what you see the most. You're also likely to buy that because you don't see the alternatives. Yeah.
And that is buying the vote for that food, right? So what happens then? Well, that creates a demand. That means that more companies are going to make that. It becomes a problem. So it does start with you in
a lot of chocolate. This is a lot of sausage.
That more companies are going to make that.
This is a lot of chocolate. I'm looking if I can see because there is a euro sign right there. So this is somewhere in Europe. And I see Kinder Egg and Milka. This is, at least it's Germany because it's Milka. And Kinder Egg, at least it's Germany. If not, then it is a German-speaking country. So Austria, Switzerland, Germany, one of those three.
It becomes a problem. So it does start with you in a certain way. If more people can start voting with their dollars and buying more wholesome foods and buying less ultra-processed foods, it can be a game changer. Before I get into a lot more of the details on this, today's video sponsor, by the way, is Thrive Market. I highly recommend them. The reason it is relevant to today's video is because they have fresh groceries that you can order online now. So no ultra-processed stuff, no preservatives, nothing. It is an online grocery store where you can get your stuff delivered. They've been a sponsor on this channel for half a decade. This is nothing contrived with this video. It's just relevant. So that is a 30% off discount link for your entire first grocery order. So you can now order cottage cheese, you can order meat, you can order seafood, you can order vegetables, you can order fruit. You can get your fresh food from Thrive Market, and it's delivered.
I want to see what the price is. This is organic Gala apples, a 2-pound bag, I guess. 2 pounds, €2 a pound, €4. So I have €2 a pound. Yeah, that's about. Calculated too. Yeah, it's half the. Yeah, in the Netherlands, you get the same amount for half the price. Yeah.
Delivered to your doorstep in a day or two. Not to mention the usual stuff. You can sort by diet type, keto, paleo, fasting, vegan, whatever, all of it, just a couple of clicks to sort. Fresh, frozen, pantry, no processed stuff. Talk about voting with your dollars. Okay, this is not just Thrive Market collecting a check. It's going to the companies that want to help make change in how we eat. Again, that link is down below. It is a 30% off discount link plus a free $60 gift with your first purchase. So that link down below. The European Union bans a lot of ingredients.
Yeah, we do.
They ban and have a lot more food regulations. Now in America, we like our freedom. Like we like the fact that we have flexibility there. And make no mistake, like a lot of Europeans are envious of some of the liberty that we have here. But one place where Europe is doing it right is they have a little more control over the garbage that goes into the food systems, the food supply. They ban the things like titanium dioxide. They ban the things that have the literature behind it to suggest that it might not be good.
Yeah, okay. We have. There are a lot of stuff that we ban from our food that is allowed in America. And maybe I will do a video about it soon, about the things that are you can do and you can buy in America that is illegal or not being sold in Europe. Would be a good would be a good one. If you like that I make that's a video, if I react to that video, let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, then like if you like my reaction until this far.
Love it or hate it, that can definitely be a good thing, and it's a contributing factor here. In the United States, it takes a lot longer to ban substances. We're a slow-moving beast, and a lot of times there's pushback because, again, there's nothing against capitalism in this particular sense, but this is what happens, right? We have this situation where there's going to be money that supports things, and there's going to be lobbying. It's the way that it is because it's a slow-moving bureaucratic nightmare with a lot of bureaucratic red tape.
Yeah, that's what I see with a lot of stuff that's going on in the United States when I say, what? Yeah, healthcare system, the big pharma, oil, everything is based on lobbying and bringing money.
So in order to ban something, you might potentially piss off a lot of people, and you might potentially piss off a lot of money. And that means that things have to be delicately handled. Not to say that doesn't happen in Europe, but it's a big issue here we should really be focusing on. Now, one of the biggest...
Yeah, in Europe for these kinds of things is that in Europe we say that a nutrition supplement is not healthy until proven safe. And in America, it's unsafe. No, it's legit to use until proven unsafe or unhealthy. That's exactly the wrong way around.
Things is the psychological piece. The European Union, a lot of countries ban advertising of food on children's networks regardless.
On children's networks, is there no candy advertisement? No, he's right. Yeah, he's right.
Because kids' minds are malleable, and it's not the time to be bombarding them with food signals. Okay, now check this out. Some European countries don't even allow advertising of ultra-processed foods to kids in the first place. If you turn on Nickelodeon, Disney, any kids channel at all, that's almost all the commercials you're gonna see is hyper-processed, ultra-processed food. It's just not the way that personally I think it should be, but it is the way it is here. And that clearly does make a difference. There was a study published in Journal Pediatrics that was quite fascinating, okay? They found that kids had an increase in appetite simply by seeing a celebrity that had been previously associated with a food, even if that food wasn't present. Give you an example. Let's just say, hypothetically, completely, Michael Jordan. I don't know if kids still know who Michael Jordan is these days, but either way. Let's say Michael Jordan was holding Hostess cupcakes and was doing a lot of advertising for Hostess cupcakes. In this study, if kids were to see Michael Jordan, even without a Hostess cupcake, they would get hungry. We can't be doing that to kids, and that's the European Union is much more strict on that. Not to mention childhood obesity is 15% higher in the US than it is in Europe. So that speaks for something too. Now let's talk about the prevalence of processed food in the first place. So there was a study published in Public Health and Nutrition. Okay, it took a look at various countries and the amount of ultra-processed foods. Okay, first it looked at 19 European countries grouped all together. When it looked at these specific 19 European countries, it was about 26% of their dietary intake came from ultra-processed foods.
26.4% ultra-processed foods. Average household availability of ultra-processed food ranged from 10.2% in Portugal and 30.4% in Italy to 46% in Germany and 50% in the UK.
It's not good, but it's not as bad as it could be. Portugal was only 10%. Okay? Now you think about Portugal, you think about what they stand for, and you think a lot of people are moving to Portugal. Yeah, I mean, they're all about whole foods. And the region that they're in, there's a lot of that. Same with kind of Spain.
Yeah, it's on the seaside. So at the seaside, you have a lot of fish. So there are a lot of fish-like dishes together with the rice. Yeah, paella.
Right? Okay, UK had the highest European levels of processed food at
And there's also a kingdom. So
about
yeah,
50%. And you think about it, that kind of makes sense, right? They're somewhat of an island. It's cold, probably not a lot of farming that can be done in certain ways. So there's a lot of import and a lot of canned food and a lot of processed food. And that's kind of the way that is in some cases. But it's also very developed, very fast paced, and it has a lot of kind of American influence either way. Like there's a lot of that kind of vibe. But then you go to America and it's over 57%. 57% of the calories that are consumed in America come from not just processed food, but ultra-processed food. And no matter which way you spin it, ultra-processed foods are not a good thing. At least not when almost 60% of your calories are made up of them. If you occasionally have a Pop-Tart because you want to have breakfast with your kid on a Sunday, fine. But if 60% of your diet is Pop-Tarts, that's a problem, right? Now let's address another thing. Now this isn't something that we can go out and fix, but it's something that we can address internally and make changes. European cities were built a long time ago before cars. So we've got a lot of smaller blocks and the cities are walkable and cyclable.
yeah, exercise. There we have it. Yeah.
So it's easy to make that happen. Even when you adjust for outliers, Europeans are more active just on the daily, even if they're not exercising as intensely as we might be in America. There's also better public transportation, which says, well, it's transportation. No, it still influences people to walk because you're getting off at a bus stop and you're having to walk. Okay, there's a lot of reasons why that could work. Now in America, it's different because our cities are built differently. They're built, most of them, after cars. So it made sense that they would be further and they would be less walkable. But there was a study that was published in Endocrine Reviews that found that walkable cities had about a 43% instance of obesity, whereas non-walkable cities were about a 53%. That doesn't have anything to do with anything other than the fact that looking at a pure demographic of a walkable city versus non-walkable city, just by nature of a city being walkable, there was a 10% less risk of being obese. But it gets really sketchy when you start looking at other papers and you realize that there's a 30 to 50% increased risk of diabetes in a non-walkable city.
Yeah, because a lot of sugars, the sugar content of all this ultra processed food and sugar everywhere in the drinks, in the burgers, in the bread, everywhere there are sugars, much more processed sugars than that we have here in Europe. And again, I bring it back to the work and private balance, a balance between work and private. That's also a big problem.
Because activity plays a really big role, right? Activity plays a role in the short-term metabolic impact and glucose homeostasis, right? Trying to modulate glucose. So with this, you need to keep in mind non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Park further from the grocery store entrance. Walk around the mall more. Ingrain walking into your life rather than having it be an artificial sort of addendum to your day.
Yeah, good point. Good advice. Because the parking lots are way too big. So put it on the other end of the parking lot and then walk to the store. Yeah, good advice.
This way, you're living more in that European lifestyle. And the kind of diet you may want to follow is one that is limiting the ultra-processed foods and living more like a country like Italy or maybe...
Yeah, but as I understand, I will take a look at it, but the prices of the more healthier food in the US are higher than the, let's say, less healthier food. And that's why a lot of people, again, for their health and don't have enough money, they can afford to live healthy. Yeah.
Greece or Spain or Portugal, right? What does that Mediterranean diet look like? Even though there's a good amount of carbohydrates, they're walking more. One thing that we can do in America, though, is pave a way for a lot of research, and we have started to understand how important protein is. And there's a lot of European research and American research that's demonstrating that one thing that we can do better now to increase our health span is increase our protein intake. Whether you're plant-based or animal-based or both omnivorous, that protein needs to be the staple. If you fill up on the good quality protein and you get most of your nutrition from that, less of your percent of calories can come from those whopping numbers of ultra-processed foods. It's the best way that we can stick it to the advertising for ultra-processed food, is to create a buffer between us and them by filling up with good quality protein.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah, healthier food. I know if I'm correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but a lot of this is also comparing to Europe depends on how much money do you have, how much do you have the time to do all this stuff that he's supposing that he should do, and how just the cost and the time. Do you have the cost and do you have the time? And most of that is, the reason that a lot of people don't have enough money to buy healthy food or don't have enough time to prepare a good meal. So they prefer the easy way out, easy meaning fast food. And that's why there's a lot of fast food restaurants, of course, in the United States with drive-in. Yeah. The easy it can be. Get in your car, drive to McDonald's. In the drive-in order, you don't have to leave your car. You get your products and you go on to your next job and eat in your car while, For those people, I understand it's hard to do this, but think about your health and do a lot. This is a good video, good advice, learned a lot. I was hoping that he told more about the differences, especially for the upper countries that he started with, but he compared Europe with the US, and we are not almighty, but he does a good comparison and explains good to you guys why we in Europe are better off than you are in America. I hope you liked the video. Press like, and maybe you want to take a look at that video too. And otherwise, you can also, would be nice, click on this button to subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world to me. I really need those. So let me know what you want to do, what I should react to. If you have a suggestion for me, Joanne, can you react to this video about America and Europe? I will let it know in the comments, and I will see you in that video. Thank you for watching.